Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started so that we can get done this morning. I know y'all are busy, and I don't want to keep you longer than I have to. So, when Sherry and I were discussing some sessions that we were going to offer in June, we were trying to figure out what to do, and I thought wrapping up the school year 2025 would be helpful. Ultimately, Sherry's already done a lot of this legwork with you if you participated in her ending the IEP season, wrapping up IEP season. But I did want to share a few more things with you that I used when I was a coordinator. So I am Samantha Russell. I am a Power School Special Programs Coach for the ALSDE, and I think I've probably talked to all of y'all before, but our sessions are very laid back. Please uh, type a chat in the box if you have a question, or raise your hand and I will unmute you if you'd like to use your microphone so that you can communicate with me. But ultimately, if I'm saying something that confuses you, please let me know, because ultimately I want to help you, not confuse you. So in case you don't know, we have 5 Power School coaches for the ALSDE. We don't work for Power School. We actually work for the State Department, but we do help with our Power School products. Caitlin, Quandria, and Kendall all work with Power School SIS, so they are mainly working with schools related to like attendance and grading and those kinds of things. Caitlin specializes also in Power Teacher Pro and Schoology, as well as Quandria and Kendall with Power Teacher Pro, and they all do analytics and insights also. So anyway, Sherry and I mainly stick to special programs. We do have knowledge about SIS, but if it's something too complicated, we're always going to defer to our other coaches. Reach out to us anytime. This other site, this site, the Alabama edition of Power School, this is a site that is invaluable to school and district people in Alabama, because it's a one-stop shop. You can access everything here. So bookmark this site and use it. Okay, I actually talked to a district about this site yesterday. They didn't realize that they could use this. And so what this is, the state of Alabama has purchased this for all Power, excuse me, Power School users in Alabama. And when you, especially this time of year, it's a perfect time. You're hiring new teachers, you're getting people in new positions. I talked to a district about this yesterday that had a new school counselor, and they were like, "Hey, we've got to get them some Power School training because this person's coming straight out of the classroom, so they have no idea about the admin side of Power School." There is a school counselor learning path in this customer education campus, so use this tool. You can all states don't do this for their users, so we are fortunate to have this. This is not Alabama specific, but it is Power School specific, and it is a valuable tool. You can, like, if you're getting a new front desk secretary, or you're getting a new special ed teacher, or whatever, you can assign them a learning path and they can learn at their own pace. It's a great way to get a basic foundation of Power School. Okay, so Sherry has done a great job of setting up a live binder for us to use. And so she and I maintain this. This web address may change in the future. So if you're a live binder user, it may change in the future as it comes up under the State Department rather than Sherry's personally. But we'll let you know if that changes. But for now, this is the web address to our live binder where we place our presentations and recordings and our reports that we build for people, and we put documentation there for people to use. So just keep that in mind, that this is a resource for you. You can see in this screenshot, it is of this PowerPoint presentation and recording tab. This is a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet, and you can find the recordings for each session as well as the PowerPoint. And I know y'all are busy, so you don't always get to attend, but please go here and pick up at least the PowerPoint. That way you know if something's being said, you can go back and listen to that part of the recording. Also, this is the tab that houses our reports. We do try to put a description in there. All of them do not have a description, but ultimately we are looking to build reports and put them there. We are supposed to be getting a controller at the end of the school year, at the beginning of the school year, so hopefully that we'll be able to put these in your instances of special programs for you so that you're not having to find them and do them yourself, but for now, this is what you'll need to do if you want a specific report that we don't have already in your special programs. Okay, so we know that last week we finished up our annual data reports. Some people had difficulty with them, but I wanted to put this slide in here because when I was a coordinator, I was very particular about how I documented things. We all know, coming from a special education background, that documentation is everything, because if you can't document it, it didn't happen. And so here we go. One of the things that I did when I was a director, as I was doing my and submitting my reports, is I would come over here to this administration, configuration, profile types, and then globals. Ultimately, this is the global page. But the little breadcrumbs up at the top, that is your click path to get here. But I would take a screenshot of that, and then I would highlight to make sure I had that check mark by that snapshot approval. And sometimes we don't have things that we can approve. For example, if you don't have any E out of preschool students, you may not be able to approve that report because it's empty. So you may still have to, it'll tell you where you can take that snapshot or something, and you can write on there who you talk to, document it so that you have a way to keep up with what has been submitted and when. Okay, so y'all are getting calls and emails about these AIM errors, and I know your district people are probably just on y'all. Change these, fix these errors. We can't roll over. I get it. I don't know how many calls and emails I did yesterday, but it was a lot. I'm surprised my throat isn't sore from talking yesterday. But some things to remember is, do not make manual corrections on the profile unless you're directed to specifically by a Power School person, because those things need to follow. We need to follow a process to correct our AIM errors, okay? But the AIM errors come from this page in Power School CS, okay? This is the page that when an error kicks out to AIM, this is where it originates. It comes from this over on the compliance tab on the student's CS side, and then you go to special programs, and then you come over here and you get this special program screen. And when we are missing elements here and here, or something doesn't add up with the logic, that's when it kicks out an AIM error. The only way to fix these is either if we see that everything is correct in special programs and we know that the two programs are talking, sometimes your SIS people have to fix these manually with what they call it a DD through DDA. But we don't like to do that because sometimes data does get stuck and we have to follow a weird process. That's a little bit higher than my pay grade. I don't like to do that. But the appropriate way to do this is to go into the special programs, and follow the process. For example, if we're missing an LRE code, usually these were because a student was manually set to active, and they shouldn't be active yet because they don't have an IEP, or the IEP has not been finalized. So just remember that when you have an LRE code error, we need to check some things, okay? We need to check to see if that child has a finalized IEP first. And then we need to make sure if that student has a finalized IEP, we need to figure out why that is missing. Sometimes we've had forced finalized IEPs and they haven't put the LRE code in. So there's lots of reasons. So we've got to do some investigation. We don't need to just go stick the LRE code in because we can edit a profile. That is not the appropriate process. So if these overall, I'm talking to you about what we've seen overall throughout the state, as Sherry and I have investigated multiple errors. Okay, if a student is found eligible, like they have an eligibility meeting, and we find them eligible, our case managers especially and our psychometrists, they want to go in and they want to make that child active because they've got an exceptionality and now they're active. Well, technically they're not. They are not in special ed until they are being served. Okay, so We need to make sure that we are using this appropriately, and we're going to stop changing the statuses manually, okay? So when a student is found eligible and then an IEP is completed, an initial IEP is created and finalized, that is when the program, in its logic, knows, oh, now that student's active, so it will change automatically if we'll just leave it alone. I know we've talked a lot about the chains being broken. Hopefully, we're about to get that fixed, guys. After we get through with some of this data collection, we are going to work toward a solution to get those statuses fixed correctly so that they will automatically change when they're supposed to, and we won't be having to manipulate statuses any longer. I know if I could hear y'all are probably cheering. I know Sherry and I are. Okay, so primary exceptionality must contain a valid code. I don't know how many districts I called yesterday, but this is what we focused on yesterday, what we've been focusing on. Truthfully, the majority of these were had to do with transfer envelopes. So if we're not bringing our transfer envelopes in and merging those profiles, we are not capturing these exceptionalities. But y'all, you would be shocked at the amount of people in districts that we are seeing that are just skipping this. They're just not finalizing their eligibility. We'll go in a folder, they'll have an active IEP, y'all, and they won't have an eligibility decision that's been finalized. Well, are you active? No, but that status has been changed to active. Somebody went in there and changed it. So keep in mind that all of this stuff could be resolved if we would just let the program do what it's supposed to, most of it. So look first, is your eligibility finalized? And then if it is finalized and there's still not an exceptionality in there, you might want to open that eligibility decision and look at that decision page, because I have seen them where that decision was empty and it was force finalized. So if you see force finalized over here, it's likely that it was missing something, and it could be the exceptionality on that signature page. Also, if a student has been in your district before, this is when this mostly happens. When a student has been in your district before, and then they transferred out, and then now they've transferred back in, if we're not clicking that Merge Profiles hyperlink when we're bringing that transfer envelope in, it will not right over here to this profile. So we're finding a lot of incomplete profiles or outdated profiles because of that. So there is a recording on the transfer process over in our Live Binder. I would suggest that you watch it. Sherry did a fabulous job explaining it in great detail, and so look over there and work on that. Okay, so one thing that I did when I was a director is I asked after we did IEPs, I asked my teachers to send me a list of students on their caseload that were getting extended school year services, okay? But inevitably, students were left off. So I always did a double check, okay? One way that I did that was I created a report to pull related services for a specific time frame so that I could see who needed related services over the summer, okay, or extended school year services. So what I did was I built this report, and this link up here is a report to that report definitions. Now, keep in mind, you have to, when you click this link, it's going to look like a bunch of jibbly garbage because it's computer speak. It's not, it doesn't look like a report. When you open it, that page, you're going to download that file. And then you're going to upload that file into your reports, so that in your utilities, in your reports, so that you can get this report in your instance. If you have trouble with that, The instructions are in our live binder on the Reports tab, or you can call me if you need me. But ultimately, it gives you a report that looks like this. When you get that report, you can click this blue header right here, Related Services Begin Date. Now remember, this is pulling from the services, not from the special ed services, but it's pulling from the related services. So if they're getting special ed services over the summer, you're going to need to build a report that pulls from that area, okay? But this is for most of our kids in the district where I came from were getting related services. So that's what I wanted to plan for, was my service providers, okay? So you click this, and then down here at this bottom screenshot, this is what I was looking for. I was looking for students who had a related services begin date between 6/1 and 8/1. So I wanted to see for our district, the district I came from, we wrote school year IEPs. So if a student got extended school year services, their IEP started on June 1st of this year. So our IEPs went June 1st of 24 to May 23rd or whatever of 25. Okay. Now this year's IEP time would be 6/1/25, and they would end in May of 26. But so I was looking for students whose IEPs or the service times dates began at least by June 1st, and they ended. Or between or by or between 6/1 and 8/1. Sorry, my brain got tangled there for a second. So when I click OK, it's only going to pull up students who have a service date beginning between 6/1 and 8/1. And this, you can see here, I have the names covered up, but here's the grade levels. You could click directly into their profile, and now I can see, 1, 2, 3, and I don't know how many are behind here. I need some occupational therapy, okay? And so then I could click into those students and see how often it needed to be provided. Now, here's the way I looked at it for the year. Maybe I need to plan to see, do I need to hire another service provider for the school year? So there again, I clicked on this blue box, and you can filter down to greater than or equal to. So for the district in which I worked, if you had a school year IEP, which is what we did, our services begin date would have been 8/1 for school year services. Now, we did ESY services separately. We didn't put them on the same line. We did a new line for our school year IEP. So I wanted to pick up anybody who had a service date beginning at least on 8/1/25 and going forward. So I clicked OK, and there is my list of students with specific service types for related services and who's going to get them. Okay, you can also filter by service type. You could filter by grade level. Okay, now, another thing that I suggest that you do is run the ALSDE Active Students Excluding Gifted report. Okay, in your standard reports, this is up there under the ALSDE heading. It's like the first or second one at the top of your reporting section. And you can use this report for a variety of things, okay? Now, I edited my report because I wanted to add a column. And in my report, I added some columns. I wanted to see their annual review due date, and I wanted to see their current IEP start date and their end date and their review date. So I wanted some extra things so that I could see at a glance a lot of information about my students when I run this report, okay? So by using this report, I can quickly scan that annual review due date column, the one that's outlined in red there, to ensure that my teachers have been compliant with meeting their annual review due dates. And I can know the students that have an IEP for the new school year. And let me tell you how. Because you're looking there and you're like, well, they have an annual review due date of 5/19/26. but their current IEP start date and current IEP end date is last year's IEP. That's not right. Well, it is right because that current IEP start and end date for the current one doesn't change until we start our new year. So it will automatically roll over to that new IEP, current IEP dates as soon as we start our new year in August. Okay? But when we met our annual review due date and we created that new IEP, it did change the annual review due date. Because remember, the only way we get an annual review due date is when we have written a new IEP. So very easily, I see all those are 2026 dates. So I know that every one of them has a new IEP for this new school year. Okay? Also, should those IEP dates have stayed like maybe little Johnny's IEP due date, annual review due date was in April, and my case manager wasn't ready to write that new IEP, but they needed to meet that review date, they would have conducted an annual review and followed that process, and when they put that date on the signature page, it will populate here. And at a glance, I would know that that annual review due date had been satisfied. Okay, so let me say this right here. And I did not know this until about 2 weeks ago. So don't think you're behind the 8 ball. If a student has not gotten a new IEP created for them, maybe the teacher forgot to finalize it, maybe they are waiting for a doctor's report. I don't know what the circumstances were, but they had an IEP and they were active in the 24-25 school year, and their IEP ran out on May 23rd of 2025. So their IEP is over, but it's the summer, and they do not have a new IEP for the 25-26 that is finalized yet. That student's status will change to inactive. Because if that student does not have a new IEP, and the duration dates are over for the old IEP, their status will change to inactive. That is part of the update today that came out with Power School. Stacy Oyster sent out an email this morning regarding that. So just keep in mind, when you look at your list and you see some inactive students, you're going to be like, something's wrong. Well, it's because they're missing an IEP for the upcoming school year. Okay, something else for you to be doing is checking your indicator reports that we will submit in the fall. All right, y'all know what it's like. We've been on a roller coaster this school year. We have been barreling. It started, after Christmas with getting ready for state testing and getting all your IEPs and your testing pages squared away. And then it started with IEP season, and we know what that's like, IEP season, and trying to make sure our people are graduated. And now it's submitting data reports, and then we get just a little bit of breathing time, and then we start over again in mid-July, and we are running like scalded dogs until at least maybe September. Well, guess what happens at the beginning of September? Our reports are supposed to be submitted. The submission date window is between September 2nd and 16th, and these 4 reports are going to be due. Do not wait until August to start on these, y'all. Go ahead and be running them right this second when it's not so hectic. It's a really good time to take a look at these. Be looking, checking, getting ready so that when it's time to submit, you'll be like, whew, because y'all know what August is like. You have a jillion transfers in. You've got to be at all the IEP meetings. Mamas are mad about things. You've got to go to back to school. You've got to go to this. You got to go to that. Some of y'all work in smaller districts, so you wear multiple hats. It's a never-ending. It's never ending in August. So don't wait till then to try to get all this done. Okay, if you run that out of preschool tracking log and you find out that you're missing some students or things are not populating correctly, there's some things you need to look at. You need to go up to the student's profile in the preschool area, and you need to fly out to this preschool profile and make sure that your dates are populating here. If they are not here, then they're not going to show up on that report correctly. So what you do need to do is you need to check that student's birthday and their grade level, because there's logic in that IEP and eligibility report to make sure that, like, if a child is in a certain grade and a certain age, then the dates will go here. And if they're a certain age, then they go here. So make sure that you have the student's correct birth date and grade level. And then there's some other things. When you write that preschool IEP, you've got to have the initial IEP checked, and you've got to have it was a preschool student checked. Okay? If those two boxes are not checked, that IEP information will not write back to that preschool profile. All right? Another thing that can affect it will be on the eligibility decision page. So at the bottom of the signature page on the notice and eligibility decision, you have to put in the type of referral. And based on what you put in here, that's when it populates over to that special education preschool profile. Okay? I want to direct you to this presentation by Sherry wrapping up the 25 IEP season. This presentation link is the recording, and this is the PowerPoint. I suggest that you read it, and at least look at the PowerPoint, but go back to her recording, because we are seeing lots of districts that have lots of issues, and a lot of it is based on things that were not done correctly, or they may have things that need to be fixed based on this IEP season. So look at her recording, or listen to her recording, and look at her PowerPoint for greater detail on using some of those reports. Okay? Now it's time for question and answer. So we're in a small group. I would love to hear from you. Additionally, this is contact information for Sherry and me, and the link address to our live binder. I'm going to stop the recording, and so that you will feel less self-conscious about asking questions. Okay.